Hey everyone, in today's episode I'll discuss regional areas that make sense investing in. It's an interesting topic because a lot of people talk about obviously the unaffordability of major capital cities, which is a fair argument and it's true to a large extent. But a lot of people at the same time then say, oh, should I invest here? Should I invest there? And it's in regional areas that you would never invest in. So in today's episode, there's a couple of things I want to get into. First of all, the growth requirements of a regional area that makes sense investing in. And then second of all, the economic requirements for a regional area. Then finally, what I'll get into is the primary markets, regional markets that I would invest in and my suburb pick for each of them and why. Then finally, the secondary markets that make sense investing in and my suburb pick for each of them and why as well. Let's look at the growth and fundamental requirements of these suburbs. So these are just general sort of requirements, I think, to make an area be worthy of investing in. First of all, a minimum of 5 suburbs within the region of 7+% capital growth for at least 30 years. At least 200,000 in population, restricted supply, and a high standard of living. So if I just go through this alone, 5 suburbs is 7% plus capital, 30-year capital growth. That eliminates all of North Queensland immediately. There's barely any suburbs in North Queensland that have done that. 200,000 population, that'll remove probably Albury, Dubbo, Wodonga, Bathurst. It removes all of them. It removes also Shepparton, Ballarat, Bendigo, all of them as well. It removes pretty much your whole Gascoyne and that whole area as well. Let's get into a few other prospects that I think you need to consider as well. So economic requirements, government and business-backed fundamental industry, ideally high income demographics, and income relevant to the 30% rule. So government-backed and business-backed fundamental industry, that's industries that are always there and fairly consistent. Mining does not include in that, so you can remove most of the regional WA prospects there and most of the regional Queensland as well. Ideally high income demographics. So there's only a number of places where this is apparent. And in regional locations as well, there's not that many suburbs that have that either. Income relevant to the 30% rule. So this is a big one. So this is, when I say relevant, census stats won't always show it, but I mean income relevant for the people that are buying into the suburb to the 30% rule. So that rule is basically no more than a third of your income should go to paying your mortgage or rent in a suburb. So that's a key economic requirement. That will remove pretty much all of regional Tasmania almost immediately from that chart. It will remove pretty much, if you want to count Darwin as the capital, but if you want to count it as a major regional area, that will remove that as well. So that's another thing just to consider. It will remove all of northern New South Wales as well in terms of income as well, like Byron. It'll remove Lismore, it'll remove Coffs Harbour, Yamba, all of that too. So when we remove all of them, it only leaves you with about 6 areas. And these are the areas I constantly talk about that you should buy in, and there's a reason for that. So the primary areas where this does work is Newcastle, Jalong, and the Central Coast. So these areas, the reason I put them in as a primary category is because you've got the necessary industry behind a lot of these areas, the necessary jobs, and also you got the necessary income in a lot of suburbs in these markets that actually make sense. Secondary markets, Woolingong, Gold Coast, and the Sunshine Coast. Wollongong is probably closing in on a primary market, but not there yet. The Gold Coast and Sunny Coast have too much tourism backing their economy, but there are definitely some suburbs that are worth buying in there regardless, so they still should be included. Wollongong's economy is developing, definitely, but it's not quite there yet. So these are the areas that make sense to invest in, regional areas, and I'm going to get into a suburb for each of them over the next couple of minutes. Let's start with Newcastle. Now, Newcastle, in my opinion, has the best regional economy of anywhere in Australia. It is fundamentally backed by the medical precinct of John Hunter and Calvary Mater Hospital, and the actual education department, being the University of Newcastle as well, is very strong there, and it's got a world-renowned medical, practice, they're not practice, but study there that then goes into practice in the future. So that's a good thing for Newcastle. You also got the Hunter Basin that has obviously coal there too, which is great. And you got tech developing, a bit of financial firms, legal popping up there too, which is also really good, and transport for New South Wales there. So you got government-backed private business all doing quite well there, which is good. The suburb I'd pick out of Newcastle, and I have purchased here quite recently for a few clients, is Islington. It's an inner suburb. It's quite similar to your inner west or inner of both Melbourne and Sydney. Smaller lots, but really quaint, very walkable, good town centre. It's close to Hamilton Station too, which is a station that has direct trains, not direct, but major trains that go straight to Sydney. And really what it is, it's Newcastle's trendy kind of centre. So it's like kind of like trendy Newtown kind of suburb. That's what I'd say I'd call it. You got a lot of alleys, a lot of little corner shops, little quaint cafes, antique shops. They're all really common in Islington. And you're still picking it up for 950,000, 900,000. I picked one up for a client recently for, I think, 925,000 from memory, which is a really good buy. It'd be 500 meters from the station. So really, really good there too. So that's my pick in terms of Newcastle in New South Wales for the regional centre. Look, the second area I want to get into is Jalong. And now, Jalong is the cheapest area that's worth investing in all of Australia that will perform well long term. Now, Jalong historically was an industrial heartland where you had a lot of shipyards, a lot of agriculture, a lot of just industry, whether it be energy or anything like that sort of going through there as well. But it's really started to change in recency. So recently you've got a lot of government industry go out there. So transport is one thing, and you've got the hospital also upgrading too, which is good. But the GDP in Geelong actually had done 3.7% between 2016 and 2021 per annum on average, which is close to triple the median average of the country. So that's very good, and it's actually cheap. So the median price of houses in Geelong is about 720,000. But if I was to say what my pick of Geelong really is, it's Geelong West. Now, Geelong West is funny because you've got areas of Geelong West that are both, should I say, larger homes like this on your heritage quarter acre and sometimes even larger blocks. And then you've also got your villagey kind of period homes that, well-maintained weatherboards that line the streets of other pockets of Geelong as well. So that's a thing you have in Geelong. But the thing about Geelong is you got very high median income comparative to the suburb actual median too. So the residents can easily afford this suburb as well. And there's wealthier people moving in as well to add to that. You've also got a great town centre. So this is Packington Street. And this is basically, you'd think you're in the lower North Shore of Sydney or eastern suburbs of Melbourne in this street. It's just incredible. I mean, no one really who lives close to Packington Street or anywhere in Geelong West really wants to leave because they're really good areas to live, very good work, should I say, lifestyle areas too. So it's definitely an area that, someone wanting to buy should definitely consider in Geelong West in the Geelong region. Let's get into the other main primary market of New South Wales. And the reason, and this is the Central Coast, but the reason this is in here is because the Sydney actual metro area in terms of real estate now counts up right up to Doyleson. And Doyleson's basically on it's Doyleson straight across to Nora Head. That's basically on the cusp of Lake Macquarie, really. But Aoka Beach is the suburb I'm going to mention here. And the reason being is because it's actually very cheap as well. I know it sounds crazy. It's about 1.6 to 1.7 million, but for what you get there. So look, Aoka Beach really has, really good sort of, first of all, demographics. You got comparable income to Sydney there. It's only about 1.6 to 1.7. You got a great sort of lifestyle there. So you can see just the beach, the headland there, the lake, everything like that. The stock, because it's by the sea, it's pretty much all landlocked by the sea, the lake, and the other boundaries of the suburb, which is good. And it's similar to living on probably the north end of the northern beaches, but it's very cheap for where it is and the demographics. So it's going to do very well in terms of that. But its lifestyle is just incredible, which is why a lot of your wealthy sort of coast-loving Sydney-siders tend to move there. So this is just out of the Financial Review, why Sydney-siders are moving to the northern beaches of the Central Coast. And that's quite common now in the Central Coast to see that happening. So it's a great area to consider if you're thinking of buying there in terms of a primary market close to Sydney, but outside of Sydney in terms of regional Australia in the Central Coast and Aoka Beach. Let's get into some secondary regional markets that are worth buying in. And let's start with probably one that's about to sort of go into a primary sort of phase, and that is Wollongong. So look, Wollongong's obviously very well known in Sydney and by most people in Australia for being the home of BlueScope Steel, or should I say the Illawarra Steelworks. Not as big as it used to be, but it is still obviously in operation there. A lot of the blast furnaces are still down there, and you've got obviously Port Kembla as well, which is good, where a lot of, container ships come still outside of Sydney. But Wollongong really, today it's starting to develop. So you can see this is just from Fairy Meadow looking towards North Wollongong and Wollongong CBD. You'll notice that the income sort of demographics there, not only that too, but also the actual industry is starting to improve there. You're starting to get business firms pop up, legal firms pop up. You're starting to get transport pop up. Obviously, you got the Illawarra Hospital, Wollongong Hospital Precinct, and the university that are quite big down there too, which is good. But my pick in Wollongong, funny enough, is a suburb called North Wollongong. Now, I did go to Wollongong Uni a number of years ago, so it's funny to mention this because I know it very well. But North Wollongong is basically bound by the uni, the sea, the station, and North Wollongong really is probably the best location in all of Wollongong. So you're close to all the good schools surrounding Wollongong, whether that be Illawarra Grammar, the good ones around Fairy Meadow, and the rest of them that are there. There's a lot of good primary schools there too, that are nearby, Catholic schools as well, and public high schools too. But you've got obviously the beachfront, the parkland there, which is great. And the small western pocket there is mostly low density near the station. And it's also, the thing is, all of this actually sits as well within the transport orientated plan. So the land is very scarce around here. It's very hard to find good blocks of land that don't go for ridiculous sums. I mean, I'm still picking up stuff here for like about 1.3, 1.4 million. Some, if it's a bigger block, a bit more. But I mean, if you want a future development project, this is a good suburb for it. You're never going to have an issue getting a tenant here. It's in demand from pretty much everyone who wants to live here. Uni students, people who work at the hospital, uni lecturers, established families. It's in demand from everyone. So it's such a good location in Wollongong, and it's a good buy for that regional area of Wollongong as well. Let's go to another secondary market, and this market has started to pick up, but it's not quite, I'd say, a primary regional market yet, but it's quite expensive. So that area is the Gold Coast. It's one of my favorite areas in the country, simply being someone who loves the coastline. Look, obviously you've got some of the most beautiful beaches and headlands, and definitely the best surf breaks you'll have in the country in the Gold Coast. So no surprises there that I like it. But fundamentally, the reason why it still sits within a regional area worth investing is because it does have quite a few suburbs that have performed well long term. It does have international investment, and a lot of wealthy people do tend to move their money. It's one of the areas of Australia where you get, it's called the Great Australian Migration, of a lot of the southerners from Sydney and Melbourne that move up here to live for the lifestyle, which is good. But the one thing in the Gold Coast that does play a bit of a difficult part is the income demographics for the, should I say, either mortgage repayments or rent in the suburb. So the suburb I want to pick is a suburb called Miami. Now, it's not the Miami in Florida. It's the Miami that's one suburb south of Mermaid Beach. And it's got basically the strongest demographics in pretty much the whole Gold Coast aside from Mermaid Beach. But I mean, Mermaid Beach is like $3 million, whereas Miami's like 1.5 to 1.7. So it's more justifiable. But the household income does look low compared to Sydney and Melbourne. For the Gold Coast, this is very strong. This is the strongest pretty much in the Gold Coast comparative to the house prices. But the thing is, the people that live in houses, because there are quite a few, should I say, short-term residents that tend to live in Miami. The longer-term residents do earn a lot more money here, and the people that want to buy here do as well. So it's actually improving. So that's the reason why Miami is a good suburb to buy in, definitely in terms of the Gold Coast. So, I mean, that's my pick for the regional market of the Gold Coast, and it's a good area still to buy. You just need to be a little bit more careful around the suburbs you buy on the Gold Coast, that's all. Let's finish off with the Sunshine Coast. And look, the Sunny Coast, it only just scrapes in here really, because there's only literally about 6 or 7 suburbs that have done the level of growth that I need. And there's not much income demographics here either, but they happen to always be in a similar area. Now, Look, the Sunny Coast again is quite a market that is quite dependent on tourism as well, but you do it's not as much further along as the Gold Coast, but it is getting towards an area where you do have some better industry there. So look, you got the hospital precinct, you do have also a university, and you have some smaller businesses and trade ship going on there, quite a bit of development as well. So it does help. But my suburb pick for the Sunny Coast is a suburb called Warana. Now, Warana has comparatively decent income for the suburb, which isn't too bad. I'd say it's quite well priced. It's priced around 1.4 to 1.5 million at the moment, which is pretty good. I mean, especially compared to, a lot of other suburbs in the coast, but this has got decent income and it's very, should I say, low density and quite tightly held, which is good. So that'll help the suburb in the long term. But in terms of its price, it's very cheap for where it is. So to give everyone an idea, Warana is literally just south of Badina, and it's that one along the coastline. I'd argue it's the cheapest, probably, I'd say, suburb in the Sunny Coast with relatively good access to the CBD areas and the main facilities of Mooloolaba and Maroochydore. So that's a really good thing. And I mean, you're not going to go too wrong buying here. It's pretty much a beachfront suburb, which is really good. So definitely something to consider if you're thinking about buying in the Sunny Coast. You do need about $1.5 million for it though. Now, look, I hope this has been a good episode for everyone, and I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this, but I know a lot of the suburbs I've mentioned have been more expensive, but to give everyone an idea, if you're an investor and you're looking for a suburb to buy, I do actually have a suburb in Jalong that you can purchase right down to about 500,000. So if that's you, reach out. But otherwise, the best suburbs, in my opinion, to invest in generally in terms of for pure investment are between about 700,000 to about 1.1 million because you get the best return. But if you're an owner-occupier, please reach out as well. No problems there. I can help you out with what you need. Let's just make it the right financial decision as well, along with what you want to do with your lifestyle. But anyway, if that is of interest to you, please reach out via www.compoundinvest.com.au. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.